It's August 1494. Charles VIII, King of France, gathers his army of invasion at Lyon. He has a good claim to the throne of the Kingdom of Naples. He concluded treaties of neutrality with Spain, England and the Habsburgs. He has an ally in Ludovico Sforza, the ruler of Milan. Naples and Milan are already on war footing. Ferdinand I of Naples wants to depose Ludovico Sforza, whom he considers to be a usurper. Neapolitan forces gather near Bologna and are marching on Genoa, an ally of Milan. Charles dispatches Louis, Duke of Orleans, the later King Louis XII, to deal with them. Louis sails from Marseille with a small detachment of French and Swiss and defeats the Neapolitans at Rapallo in September. Drunk with glory, the Swiss massacre the entire town. Meanwhile, Charles crosses the Alps unopposed and establishes his base in Asti, a French possession at the time. His army consists of some 30,000 men. It includes 4,000 men at arms, a professional force of heavy cavalry. Like the knights of old, they are an unstoppable striking force. Unlike the knights, they are under the direct command of the king, who uses them as his ultimate tool on the battlefield. 8,000 Swiss pikemen, the foremost foot soldiers in Europe, form the backbone of his infantry. Men fighting in densely packed and unbreakable infantry squares, a formidable force both in attack and defense. There's a large artillery train, including field artillery and siege guns. Unlike in other armies, these guns are all manned by professionals and are all drawn by horses for greater mobility. This level of professionalism of the artillery corps will prove to be a decisive factor of the invasion. 15,000 other infantry of indifferent quality form the bulk of the army, mostly archers and crossbowmen. There's also a small number of light cavalry. In October, the French start to march south. They defeat a papal Neapolitan force near Bologna. They cross the Apennines, where they link up with the siege artillery arriving by sea from La Spezia. With this, they reduce the small town of Fivizzano and massacre all its inhabitants. The Florentines try to resist them, but are quickly beaten into submission. Florence capitulates and allows the French free passage. Struck with fear, the Pope recalls his troops to defend Rome. Now Naples is left alone to defend itself. Its forces retreat south and barricade themselves in their castles. In December, Charles enters Rome. In January, the exasperated Ferdinand abdicates in favor of his son, Alfonso II. The French enter the Kingdom of Naples. The town of Monte San Giovanni tries to resist them. The French reduce its defenses in less than a day and massacre its inhabitants. They dispatch a small force in the Volturno Valley. In February, they enter Naples itself, and the city surrenders after a brief siege. Alfonso flees to Sicily. Charles's daring march to Naples is over. The kingdom is back in Valois hands after a hiatus of 50 years. Charles has all the reason to congratulate himself. However, things are far from over. Struck by the unprecedented ease and success of the French advance, the Italian states decide to formulate a proper response. The Pope calls for an anti-French alliance. The League of Venice, or the Holy League, is formed in 1495. Charles's former ally Ludovico Sforza joins, fearing he might be next. Venice joins ostensibly to fight the Ottomans, in reality fearing they might be next after Milan. Spain, being beholden to the Pope after the Treaty of Tordesillas that granted them most of America, also joins. Maximilian, in spite of his appeasement, also feels obliged to join, since France, augmented with the resources of Naples, might threaten his Burgundian possessions. Fearing he might be cut off, Charles decides to return to France at once. He leaves behind a detachment to guard his new possessions and marches north along the coast. Meanwhile, League forces start to gather in Lombardy. Most are sent by Venice, as the Republic has the highest state of martial readiness. Only a few are sent by Milan. The Duke of Orléans, who stayed behind in Asti, receives reinforcements from France. Instead of marching south to join up with his king, as was originally planned, he directly attacks Milan, occupying the city of Novara. Sforza has to keep most of his army at home blockading them. But even without the Milanese, the League army outnumbers the French almost 2 to 1. Their army consists of around 20,000 men, most of them cavalry. Italian heavy cavalry, despite being armed with a lighter lance, is all but equal to its French counterpart on a 1-to-1 basis. However, as a group they are outclassed by the more disciplined French. Another contingent of cavalry, the Stradiots, have no counterpart in the French army. They are light horsemen from the Balkans, riding lightning-fast Turkish horses. They are best suited for ambushes and daring hit-and-run tactics. There is also a large number of Italian light cavalry, who are mostly armed with light crossbows. The infantry is of doubtful quality, crossbowmen, spearmen and arquebusiers, fighting in loose order, who are mostly used to back up the charging men-at-arms. The command of the army is shared among 2 men. Francesco Gonzaga, Marquess of Mantua, is in overall command. His more experienced uncle, Rodolfo Gonzaga, is in charge of the reserves. This shared command, a result of an overcautious Venetian Senate, will prove to be a crucial mistake in the battle to come. As Charles prepares to cross the Apennines, the League forces take up a blockading position at the village of Ghiarola. The French arrive on the battlefield on the 5th of July. Their goal is to march back to France, possibly even avoiding battle. The League's goal is to defeat them to such an extent as to force Charles to renounce all his conquests. Both armies deploy in 3 battle lines, made up of mixed formations of cavalry and infantry. The French place their strongest troops in the vanguard, the Italians in the middle. The next morning, as negotiations are underway, the French decide to press on, but rather than attacking League forces head-on, they cross to the other side of the river. By the time the Italians realize what's going on, the French are already on the opposite bank. The League forces form up to attack. Each of the battle groups takes up position at the river crossing. Due to the previous night's heavy rainfall, the river begins to swell. First to attack are the Stradiots. They ride after the French where they initially crossed. After some skirmishing, they fall upon the straggling French baggage train and overcome its defenders. Next across the river is the cavalry of the right wing. They are faced by the Swiss, who promptly repulse them. The right wing infantry follow them and attack the artillery protecting the French vanguard. They are also beaten back and retreat across the river. The Central Cavalry Division, commanded by Francesco Gonzaga, tries to cross the ford at Oppiano, however they find this impossible due to the rising tide. Losing precious time and momentum, they cross upstream. This gives the French ample time to turn to face them. Gonzaga, at the head of the Central Division, launches a ferocious charge that almost manages to break the French middle and rear guard. The French countercharge manages to save the situation. At this crucial point, Rodolfo Gonzaga, fighting in the front ranks, the only one who could order the reserves to attack, is killed. Now the League's plan is compromised. The Central Division is forced to regroup on the banks of the river around the mill. A brutal melee ensues where no quarter is gained. The Italians are forced to retreat. The Central Reserve moves to block a possible French advance across the river. The Stradiots had already fled, laden with gold pillaged from the French baggage train. The whole battle lasted little more than an hour. Both sides claimed victory. The battle was a typical disorganized medieval melee, though the French showed strategic initiative, choosing favorable ground. They clearly came out on top, managing to retreat in orderly manner and killing twice as many as they had lost. The Italians, in spite of their failed command, managed to hold the battlefield and capture all the treasure from the French baggage train. On the same day the battle took place, King Alfonso lands in Naples and begins to incite a rebellion against the French garrison. A small French force that was sent to attack Genoa is defeated, and the fleet carrying the rest of the treasure from Naples is captured. The League army marches to Novara and expels the French. In October the French leave Italy. Alfonso reconquers his realm. Seemingly the whole invasion is a failure, the French losing all they had gained. However, for the Italians it's a veritable disaster. Charles' success on the battlefield proved that Italy could be invaded at will by the armies of a large and centralized kingdom. Their great wealth, instead of being an asset, will rather act as a magnet, drawing in those who want to take it by force of arms. The formation of the Holy League of 1495 was also an event that will define politics for decades to come. Henceforth, the defining theme will be the desire for a balance of power, and the attempt to overcome it.